I will turn it over to Mr. Korndorfer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for taking your time this evening to hear our plans about this property. I think most of you are familiar. We've got a 5-acre parcel along Deepwood Drive. It's zoned R4, which is a multifamily zoning. I first learned about it when the village put out the RFP to do condominiums. I didn't really think that was going to be a viable use given the site, but we looked at it. The zoning allows up to 7 units per acre, so 35 units with 20% minimum open space. Had a couple meetings with the village. I've had subsequent meetings with Kate Maurer from the Deepwood Drive Preservation Group, and conversations with a couple other members. And then looking at the concerns of all parties and interests, I tried to come up with a plan which will show you a couple different options, but it seemed to me that a lower density single family project would make more sense. So there were a lot of different concerns, but our overriding concern is to maintain the look and feel of Deepwood Drive. So if you could show the first slide. So this is Deepwood Drive looking to the, is it gone? Or is it...
Where is the presentation?
We're pulling it up right now.
Thank you.
There we go. So Deepwood Drive, this is looking to the west. The next slide is Deepwood Drive looking to the east. I think most of you are very familiar with it. So it's our goal to come up with a plan that will preserve this tree canopy and the look and the feel of the property. Just real quick on my background, I grew up less than a half a mile south of this site. My aunt and uncle, my grandma, our whole family lived there. I used to ride my bike as a little kid when these roads just went in and when there were no condominiums or no homes. Back in about 2005, we put 16 condominium units on Parkfield Court, just south of Campus Court. So this is my old area. I grew up around here. I intend to remain in the area. So I know the site well, and it's fully our intention to do a very nice first-class single-family development, low density, and just going to show you, if you could flip one more slide, there you go. So that's the parcel with, of course, Main Street on the west side and mostly frontage on Deepwood Drive. Just to show you the kind of homes that we envision going in here, I've just got a couple slides, if you can run through those, Casey. So this is, we've got a project just north of here in Oak Creek. These are some slides from there and then just some other homes, but these are the type of homes that we build. These are the types of models that I anticipate going on the lots. I've made the lots large enough to fit these types of homes. There's one more, and then a few interior shots. Again, this is from an Oak Creek home. And so this is the kind of home and the quality that we're planning to build there, and we're trying to create some very nice single-family lots that have the houses nestled back into the woods to again preserve the trees along the road. So in addition to meeting with the village and folks from the preservation group, we had a wetlands delineation done by an assured delineator for Madison, Heartland Ecological Group. The DNR designates assured delineators to be qualified to determine where there are wetlands and what type of wetlands there are. So it's probably a little hard to see on your screen, but the purple and what looks to be a blue area, there's about an acre of wetlands. They designated them as less susceptible, which is a designation by the DNR regulations in the Village of Wind Point Code. And they've determined it to be less susceptible, which just means that the vegetation that's in the wetlands area is mostly buckthorn and other invasive species. But still, they need to be preserved, and of course we will. We had another discussion with a gentleman from Sewer Pack, and this area is designated as isolated natural resource area. They have primary environmental corridor, secondary environmental, and then isolated is kind of their third and lower designation. Their only recommendation is that we have a setback from the wetlands to the actual home pads, which I'll show in a future slide. But other than that, they were fine with the proposed development. Oh, and the other thing we did is we had an arborist from Pinnacle Engineering, which is an engineering firm that I've used on this project. We met on the site. We marked the trees and walked all up and down Deepwood Drive where the proposed lots would be, and marked the trees in the 30 feet, which are basically the trees that hang over the road and create that canopy. It's our intent to put in a preservation easement for that first 30 feet, which I will show again later, to keep the houses hidden from the road and, again, to preserve the canopy on both sides of the road. So if you could move on to the next slide, Casey, with 10 lots. So the first, one back, please. Touchy. There we go. So the first plan that we came up with, and this is kind of outlined in the purchase agreement we have with the village. It was stated that it would not exceed a density of 10 lots, and that we would have a minimum 40% open space, which this does. Again, the zoning requires 20% minimum open space. We didn't think that was enough. We wanted to have a nice buffer on the east side to keep those trees and those woods and not open that up to the homes for both the people that live in Wind Meadows and for the residents that we hope to build for. We did get some concern about the number of driveways that would come out onto Deepwood Drive. With this, it would show the first lot on the left would go out onto Main Street where the older home used to be, and then we'd have 9 driveways. We had some concerns about that, so we came up with the next plan, which shows 8 lots. So on this plan, we have 7 lots fronting on Deepwood Drive. We are showing the yellow line is a 30-foot tree preservation easement for reasons I previously stated. And then the concern became, we want to make sure those driveways are as narrow as they can be. So we have a couple thoughts on how to reduce that, which I'll get to in a moment. But the idea is, and then the homes there are set back 50 feet. So you have the 30 feet plus an extra 20-foot setback. So that puts the front of the home at the closest. It could be more, but at a minimum, about 50 feet back from the edge of the road. The condominiums on the north side are roughly 30 feet back. There's a pretty good tree line that's grown up over the last 50 or so years since they were built. So our goal is to maintain at least that much of a vegetated buffer, and then additionally have another 20 feet or more in the front yard. So we really want the homes to be tucked back there to preserve everything on Deepwood Drive. So in terms of density, well, actually, can you show the next slide, please? So there's 2 options that we're looking at right now. We've not decided whether we want to go, this is 7 versus the 8. On both the 7 and 8, I failed to mention, we've got a bigger buffer on the east side, and then we've also got an opening in the middle between lots, in this case 4 and 5, so that it's not just a continuous row. We want to have some nice wooded sections in there. So that breaks it up. So in this case, on this layout, we've only got 6 lots with driveways coming onto Deepwood. In terms of density, again, we're at either 7 or 8 on 5 acres, so that's 1.4 to 1.6 units per acre. The condominiums across the road are, the 3 streets across the road, which are the manor homes and the condominiums on the 2 other streets, are an average of 3.87 units per acre. And then, of course, the R4 zoning would allow 35, which doesn't make any sense on this site. Another reference is the average density of the single-family homes in the rest of Wind Meadows, in the portions that are strictly single-family, are about 1.9 units per acre. So again, at 1.4 to 1.6, we're significantly less dense. We're preserving all the open space to the south of the lots and then on the east. On the 7-lot layout, we're at 46% open space. On the 8-lot layout, we're still at 40%. So double the code minimum. The other thing that we'd like to do to minimize the driveway openings, if when we put a driveway in, we have to get sewer or water into the site too. We don't like to put that under the driveway because it will settle and collapse. And if you ever have to maintain them, you'd have to tear up your driveway. If we can just do a driveway, we're probably about 20 to 25 feet for the opening with, paving and a shoulder and some clearing. But if we have to run the utilities on this side, it's more like 40 to 45 feet. So we've come up with a utility plan, and this has yet to be approved. But just to show on the 7-lot layout, this is the sanitary sewer. So what we're looking at is bringing it in 2 places instead of 6, and then running the lateral behind the tree line. And the next slide shows basically the same thing with the water laterals. It's a little unconventional to what the utilities do, but it certainly functions. And we hope to get those things approved, because then we can only have 2 of the wider driveways, and the other 4 or 5 can be, again, a 20-foot, maybe 25-foot drive. So as you come down Deepwood Drive, these drives are spaced out fairly well. There's some big gaps in between them. We will also survey the larger trees in that 30-foot strip, and obviously place the driveways where there are not the bigger, nicer trees, and go in. We can flip the house right or left to accommodate that. In terms of, there's been questions about creating extra traffic for the site. Between the 3 adjacent condominium properties, there are 50 units that feed onto Deepwood Drive. And again, we'd be adding 6 or 7, so it's a relatively small number compared to the traffic that's already on there. And I've certainly never seen more than 1 or 2 cars on it at a time. So I think it's a minimal impact. I've had questions about what this would do to drainage. We all know that the water table is fairly high and it's a fairly wet area. The building of these homes on this site is not going to affect anything outside the perimeter of the site. It's not going to go across Deepwood Drive. In fact, if anything, if we can tie our sump pumps into the stormwater system, which we hope we can, it will draw the water table down. That the water in the storm sewer ultimately goes to the ponds over by just north of Prairie School. So if anything, it should help drainage for anybody else. It will not. There's very little impervious area. It's just homes in the driveways. So as a percentage of the land area, the increase in impervious area is very little. And that is basically my presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions or, yeah, make questions.
It looks like John Kalanda is the first resident to request. John, you're up.
Was that for me, Casey?
John, that was for you.
Wolf's presentation was very loud, and now you're coming in very soft.
John, you are. We're ready for questions. If you wanted to take a question.
Right. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Well, thank Mr. Korndorfer for an extremely professional presentation. I was especially taken with the homes that he showed with no trees around the homes there. I can understand that when he got into this, he really didn't know, to you, Mr. Korndorfer, really weren't aware of the fact that 4403 Main Street has become quite a hot potato. That there were 400 signatures collected on a petition wanting that to stay as a natural area, that there's been a 1 year long tug of war between the Deepwood Preservation Committee and the village on this. So I can understand, I can appreciate that you weren't aware of all of these things before taking this on. I think that I hope that after tonight that others will speak and you'll get a flavor for for what the objections are. Your development plans sound very professional, but the way that we see it from the Deepwood Preservation Committee is that it's destroying the neighborhood. We're not seeing it as development. And so you ask yourself, you know, what would you do if somebody came into your neighborhood to destroy it? You know, would you take action or would you just stand by? And so that's what the people here are facing. Is there really was no desire for development to begin with. Your presentation was very professional. I think you touched on a lot of good points that have been concerned. The project is just not welcome. I don't think the people on Parkwood welcome it. People on Stonewood do not welcome it. I'll tell you for sure the people on Lakewood don't. People on Deepwood Court, the people on East Campus, West Campus, you know, really do not welcome the development. And my last point, I'll just say that no matter what happens here tonight, the Deepwood Preservation Committee is still going to remain opposed to this development. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, John. We have a couple of questions coming in from the chat. One is from Susan Arts, wondering what the time frame for the start and finish of the project will be.
Well, the time frame is to file the plat with the village within the next 30 days. I believe it's about a 60 to 90 day approval process. There's no interior infrastructure in the project. There, first of all, isn't any room to put internal roads. And if, you know, maybe we should pull up the 8-lot plat again if we can, Casey, just to show you that there's no room for internal roads. You know, we have to respect oh, there we go. Actually, if you go to the 7, I think it shows the wetlands. So the wetlands are significantly larger than we first thought, which is fine. It still works for the lot layout. So, it'd be 7 or 8 single-family homes, and the homes would be built when the customers buy them and when they want to build. We think that it will sell pretty quickly. You know, we're looking at home values that would be in the $450,000 to $650,000 range. We do think there'll be the types of homes I showed in the pictures. Those just happen to be from an Oak Creek project that was developed in an open field, which is why there's no trees around them. But the homes will be nestled back into the woods, and we would minimize tree clearing and maintain as much of a wooded space as we can.
So a question from Linda Johnson was, what size will these homes be? I think we established what the price range would be, and also will they have basements?
Yes, they would have basements. The home sizes could be anywhere from 2,000 to probably 3,500, depending on whether they had finished basements. 2,000 be on the lower end, but our experience is that a lot of people want to put a lot of their money into the quality and not the quantity of their home. So we determined that doing, you know, large minimums just means that there's usually results in a lower quality home because everybody has a fixed budget.
There's a question, is there any way to place one main driveway with 3 houses to each side and the 7th house driveway to Main Street?
There's not. So if you look at the space, because if you just go to the utility slide, it's a little easier to see. One of the last two. So if you look here, we're barely able to get in past the 30-foot buffer, which again, we want to maintain. And then you need at least 20 to 25 feet around a house just to excavate, pile up the dirt, pour a foundation and backfill it. So we have the houses about as far back at 50 feet as we can. Just to flip back and look at the building pads on the 7-lot layout will demonstrate this best. It's hard. Well, the wetlands are on this, but it's really hard to see. The back of the building pad, which is the dashed orange line, on many of these lots is as close as we'd want to be to those wetlands and preserve the proper setback. So the answer is there's no room for internal roads. You'd have to have probably another 70, 80 feet of depth.
There's a question, instead of all the homes being on the north side of Deepwood, can building be done on the east side? I'm not quite sure I follow that question. Would you mean to be on the south side of Deepwood or the south side of the property?
Well, there's two reasons that we don't have access to the east side. One is there is a strip of land that precludes access to the east side over there. And the other one is what I was really trying to do with that wooded buffer is, preserve the wooded look and feel for the people that live in the manor homes. I'm not sure what that street is back there, but no, off to the corner, upper right. Yep. So the people that come in at a diagonal, I wanted to have a nice buffer of woods there. So when they drive into deep woods, they're looking at woods and buffered from the other condominiums on the east.
Another question about driveways is, would the, I'm sorry, hold on, I'm trying to. Can the driveways be placed to share one driveway between two houses?
I don't really think that's going to accomplish much with this plan. You might eliminate two, because of course it's kind of a 3 and 3 lot deal. So shared driveways are very problematic. You have to have shared maintenance. You have to have shared snow plowing. You have to make sure somebody's kid isn't parked in, parking you in. Shared driveways are very problematic, and I really don't think it's going to have a overall impact on the street. And because they're going to be wider if they're shared, I think we're better off having narrow individual driveways.
Question was, who would manage the common areas, ponds, dead tree kind of stuff?
Well, there's just a small wetlands pond back there, but that has yet to be determined. There's several different options. It could be homeowners association of these 7 or 8 people. There are some other options, but that has not been determined. But there will be a provision made as part of our plan with the village to figure out who's going to do that, because certainly somebody needs to do it. It is our plan to go in there and clear out most of the dead ash trees, and there are quite a few of them right now. We've been through the whole property. There's a lot of dead ash trees, and we will get those out of there up front, and that'll clean up a lot of things.
There's a question, if we considered 5 lots and not 7 lots, would it be possible to do 5 lots instead of 7?
Well, there's 2 issues with that. One is the project would not be economically feasible, and I understand that that's my problem. But the other goal of the village is to create tax base, and I think that's been talked about at many village board meetings. So the less units we have, the less tax base. The village was frankly pretty keen, at least the few people I talked to, keen on the 10-lot plan. It worked really hard to try to compromise density and open space to, again, preserve the look and feel of Deepwood Drive, which is where we came down. Remember, from 10 to 7 is a 30% decrease in volume. So I'm trying to strike a balance. Again, the property is, I understand that there's people that would prefer to not see it developed at all. But the village, the comprehensive plan, which is a multi-county comp plan calls for this to be residential land, not open land. Zoning does allow for 35 condominiums, which would wipe out basically all the trees. You'd have very little setback. That doesn't make sense for the property. I wouldn't want to be any part of that, but again, 10, 8, 7 lots is hoping is a very good compromise for those who would rather see nothing and the village who's trying to create tax base.
Wolf, can you confirm the width of each driveway? How much space will be between each driveway?
Well, if we can bring the utilities in a common point for just the driveway, you're looking at about 20 to 25 feet of clearing, probably 15 feet of paving with a 5-foot shoulder on each side. Where we would put them would be lot specific. We will go in and do a tree survey within that 30-foot strip for each lot and locate where the bigger, more desirable trees are, and we'll flip the houses left and right. So you may have a couple that are closer together, one's further apart. I haven't gotten to that level of tree survey yet. So it's going to be determined by preserving the best trees.
There was a question, would you consider making this part of the Wind Meadows Homeowners Association?
I would consider it. I haven't had a discussion with Wind Meadows yet. I don't know what their take would be on it. The idea's been brought up, and I think it's a viable option that should be looked into. But I haven't determined all the pros and cons, and I have not determined if Wind Meadows is interested in that.
There's a question, I guess it was, the question was regarding lots. Can they be pushed further south on the property?
No, they're right up against the wetlands as they are.
Okay. And then there is a question on, there was another question on timeline and start of building completion. If we could just run back through that one more time.
Sure. So the lots will be ready to build on, once they're platted and approved by the village. So that would be by spring. We would sell lots to individuals and then build the homes on contract for them. So there's not a set time frame for when that would happen. It would be basically a supply and demand. One thing I should add to that, Casey. So it is our intent. So the development isn't actually done by Korndorfer Homes. I'm the buyer on this, but my intention is to develop these lots for and restrict them to be built by Korndorfer Homes. So we will be managing all the construction, and we'll do our very best to minimize traffic noise and the things that come with construction. We deal with it every day, and construction is kind of a messy thing, but we will do everything in our power to minimize that and certainly be available to jump on any contractor that doesn't comply with the rules that we lay down.
There was a comment from Emily Mueller. She had a question when going back to comments. Emily, did you want to unmute yourself and state your question?
Sure, thank you. I am also one who opposes, but I want to use my 3 minutes to ask you some questions about the plan you proposed. You indicated that you were looking at a 30-foot preservation easement. Can you expand on that somewhat? Tell me, what would that look like? What would it allow or not allow? How would you intend to enforce that? Because obviously that's a pretty important part of what you articulate to us in trying to preserve what's happening on along Deepwood Drive.
So it's part of the restrictive covenants, the declaration of covenants that we would file with the property. And there's different ways you can write a tree preservation easement. You can say that you can't touch anything in that 30 feet. You could limit it to trees of a certain size or species. you know, you get a lot of pushback if people can't clear out buckthorn. Personally, I like anything that gives a green visual barrier. So I'm not personally opposed to buckthorn. We haven't gotten that far yet to figure out how to write that. The intent would be to you know, obviously anything that's dead or diseased, you'd want to be able to remove. So the devil's in the details, and we do have to write those covenants. I haven't gotten that far yet, but it would be very restrictive. And then the recourse, if they do it, is similar to other covenant violations, and you can have financial penalties, other things. But we can make it pretty strict because you know, what you do run into, and the DNR runs into this, is people are like, yeah, well, I'll just clear it and ask for forgiveness, and once the tree's gone, it's gone, right? So we would make the penalties pretty harsh.
All right, well, that's my question, particularly how you intend to write this. I'm familiar with restrictive easements, but in terms of just what you're going to allow or not allow, I gather you're not that far, but is your intention, if you do build, definitely to have a preservation easement of that width, at least the 30 feet?
That will be part of our plan with the village. We'll file it as part of our plan. And the intent is basically you can't, you know, remove anything in that other than to clear a driveway. We will be the architectural approval board, and we would approve, well, we're going to be the builder too, but you know, we will approve any openings as to size, location.
All right, and then beyond that, you have a 20-foot setback beyond the preservation easement, is that right? Is that what I heard?
Oh, yes. Yeah, total 50-foot front yard setback, 30 of it being in the easement.
All right, and you indicated that you believed that the building would not affect the drainage or anything else with respect to the surrounding buildings. I'm one of the people who would be a surrounding building. Was that part of the study, the wetland study? Or how do you know that it won't affect the drainage? Many of us have sump pumps that run just a lot. There are a lot of low places and a lot of wet spots near where the plat is that you're contemplating building.
So the water's not, what I was referring to is the units across the road to the north. And I mean, we're just going to put basements in there and have sump pumps that are going to discharge through you know, a discharge line. And my hope is that we can tie those discharge lines into the storm sewer, which is out in Deepwood, and that will take the water out of the neighborhood. Otherwise, you can discharge into the woods, but ultimately that water is just going to recycle. So our hope is to get it up and out of there if we can tie in, and I haven't done a full study of that stormwater system.
And what about with respect to drainage to the east? Same answer?
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Going back to the chat, there's a question, either 7 or 8 houses, a question of which one would it be? So could you just kind of elaborate on that decision hasn't really been made fully yet?
Right.
Regarding the...
We're just looking at the two different options, the pros and cons. With the 7 lot, I've got the 3 to the east, 5, 6, and 7. I've got them a little bit wider to accommodate bigger homes. You know, I haven't really had time to circle back with the village and discuss the pros and cons of these 2 plans, but I just was showing 2 different plans, a couple different lot sizes, different open space. Again, one being 40% open, one being 46. So it's just an ongoing discussion with the village.
Again, this is still a concept plan, so that's part of why we're here this evening. So, let's see here. Kate Maurer, do you have a question? If you want to unmute, go ahead. See if Kate, did you hear me?
Oh.
There was
able to hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now. Yep.
I'm sorry, I'm having some audio struggles here. Also, can I request that if there are multiple devices connected where you are, could you mute them while I'm speaking so it doesn't have that echo effect?
I just muted. So I'm going to mute myself right now.
Okay, thank you so much. So I would like to reiterate that I am 100% opposed to this plan. As far as a compromise is concerned, this is not a compromise. And I was disappointed that that Wolf didn't come up with a plan that would, you know, I really expected more. We're not really talking about 10 homes down to 7 homes. We're talking about 0 homes and then whatever the number may be beyond that. So 6 driveways onto Deepwood Drive, that's nowhere in the ballpark of a compromise. As far as should help drainage, you know, the idea that this is going to help drainage. I mean, Wolf, I know that you've been in there and done the wetland delineation and whatnot. But if you actually go into those woods during the spring, you know, after it's rained, it is really, really swampy in the back part of that. And so my concern is not only for the people who may wind up living in there, but my concern remains for the folks who are in the area around there, where their sump pumps are already running like crazy. I don't believe that, you know, turning these woods into a housing development is going to help drainage. My question, I have a couple questions. Is there currently an indication that more housing is needed in Wind Point? And when I say more housing, I mean, you know, Ray Leffler's already, he is moving forward. Well, he's trying to move forward with his plans at the former Wind Point School property. So we're looking at 40 new homes there, 20 condominiums. Is there an indication that there's a demand for, you know, 30 new homes in Wind Point? And then also another question that I have is, Wolf, we've just touched on this, and I really appreciate that you have had any amount of open communication with me. I really appreciate that a lot. But would you consider selling, you know, the east half of that property to me or to a group? I have another question that is, will you, Wolf, be able to complete the conditions of the purchase and sale agreement by March? I believe it needs to all be completed by March. And then my last question for now is, when you say the village, I'm just wondering which village board members have you spoken with? Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm not going to remember that many questions, but I'll answer the ones I can remember. So in terms of new home demand, yes, we believe that there is definitely a demand for newer, energy efficient homes in the village of Wind Point. There's a lot of older home stock. I'm only speaking about, you know, 7 or 8 single family homes. Leffler's condominium project is a completely different project, different product type, different price point. Is there a demand for his? I don't know. That's not my project, but yeah, we are confident. When we developed Parkwood Court back in 2005, 2007, in that era, I believe we put in some very beautiful custom finished condominiums. There was great demand for them, and I know several people that live there and really enjoy living there. So yes, I think there's very, very good demand. Can I complete the conditions of the contract by the closing date? Yes. What were the other questions?
Consider selling the eastern half to either Cape or.
I mean, that's just not going to be consistent with the village's vision to create tax base and the number of units and tax base that they want. Again, the site is zoned and planned for single-family development, not park space and not open space. I don't think that's economically viable, and I don't believe that it accomplishes the village's goals for density and tax base.
And then the final question is, when village officials do these?
Oh, the couple meetings that I have had have been with Susan and Casey. Those are the only village officials I've spoken with.
I'm just going back through some of the comments here. Just to see. Yeah, there was a question about a recording. Yes, this is being recorded and will be posted on the village's YouTube page, along with the village's website. Oh, I'm sorry. Mike Palazza from 12 Lakewood would like to speak. Mike, if you want to go ahead and.
Okay, and I would like to speak at some point too, Casey. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
I have a house at 12 Lakewood. I have a huge groundwater problem. And my sump pumps run into the storm. This summer, we did some redesigning of the front landscaping, and was destroyed one of the lines going into the sewer. So we thought we'd put it into just a, and it was amazing house. So about an hour out of 2 sub pumps come out of the house. Needless to say, I had to figure out a way to tie up the system, and that's some additional work and expense. Groundwater, there is area. And I'm afraid that foundations, basements, and to make those supportable is going to make me downhill from this lake. And I'm very concerned about the water issue. But if anybody has to build it, I hope it is Horndorfer, because you guys are only respectable builders. Like a nice plan. Looking for a nice plan. I'm looking for in a conservatory area there. Basically a war zone to the south of us. Fireball alert tells me there's a shooting at least once a quarry on the west side that is actively blasting, a power plant at Oak Creek that is filling my lungs with mercury and carbon, and Lake Michigan is gnawing on the other side of the village. I don't know if we need more development area. I think it's probably maxed out. And as a friend, I would tell you, you might want to rethink against it. The property you have up at Creek Estates, which is, I wish you could got that built before I in Lakewood, because that's a nice area up there. Been working on that for 3 years plus, and a lot of lots to be sold up there. I just don't think you're going to be seeing a lot of demand for the property there, and a lot of extra work that you're done. Thanks for your time.
Janet, you had a question?
Could I make a comment?
Sure can.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Korndorfer. I think the development looks wonderful. I think it's a compromise or to the area. We're having green space. We're having beautiful homes. I so liked what you did on Parkfield Court. People that have been in government know that taxes are an issue. And I think this is some way that we can have tax base, more of a tax base, as you mentioned. As far as the drainage, I didn't know that we had so many people that were so knowledgeable on drainage. But I'll tell you about my experience in the Foxconn situation. That was the same thing that people said, oh, you know, it's going to create all this water. Well, in fact, you know, and the Fox River was an issue there. Well, just the fact that what they're doing there has eased up either the Fox River or the Des Plaines River. So unless you're an expert, and I think, Mr. Korndorfer, you had your wetlands person come in, you know how to do it. I think this is an answer for the village. It's, you know, your homes look beautiful. And, you know, I see no reason why we shouldn't do it. And the other thing I wanted to mention to all those that live in that area, you all love living there. And you know that that area exists only because of one vote. It was very, back in the 70s or late 60s, whenever, and I wasn't here, but when Wind Meadows was proposed to be developed, the people that lived around were absolutely against it. And it was by one vote that your area and that the area that you're enjoying living in. So why not allow other people to come and live there? You know, people want to come to live in Wind Point because our tax rate is so favorable compared to all the surrounding areas. So this would only add to that, and people would want to come here. And in fact, I would prefer those condominiums that Mr. Korndorfer built on Parkfield Court. You know, as the population ages, many of us would like to go into smaller spaces, and they are just so beautifully done that it's a shame that, you know, we couldn't do more condominiums, because that's what they're backing up to. You know, you all live in, or that whole, I shouldn't say you, that whole area are condominiums and manor houses. So, you know, my preference would have been for continued condominiums, but the houses, you know, I'm fine with that. And I think it looks wonderful. And the fact that you have that 30 feet preservation area, and then 20 feet beyond that, 50. I mean, what's the point of arguing it? Number one. Number two, there's so much dead wood in there that would be cleaned out. It would look much better. I mean, I walk past that area every day. So anyway, that's my point. Thank you.
Just going through some of the comments in the chat. There was a question regarding the driveway onto Main Street regarding safety concerns. The driveway on Main Street still has to be approved by Racine County, as Main Street is a county jurisdiction.
That is correct. We have not gotten their approval on it.
And then if you could, there was a follow-up question regarding the sale of a portion of the property to a group. Could you, I believe you addressed that earlier, but if you could just address it again.
Well, so I think the first question was from Kate about selling the eastern half, the entire eastern half of the property. And I responded to that. But in terms of selling the remaining open space that, you know, per the 7 or 8 lot plat, again, we haven't made any decisions. That could be considered. There's a lot of questions, though. Who would it be? How would they maintain it? How would it affect the residents that go into our homes? You know, what happens when their trees start falling on these people's lots? There's a lot of things that, a lot of times it sounds like a good idea for a private group to maintain something until the costs stack up. And then if they don't fund it, then where are you left with? So, I'm not sure that that's a viable option, but it's not one we've ruled out.
There's a question about the sump pump discharge, if the village wouldn't allow you to discharge it into the storm sewer. I would anticipate from the village's standpoint, we would want them to discharge into the storm sewer, assuming that the calculations that Mr. Korndorfer provides to us regarding his stormwater management plan meet with the capacity of the pipe. And so as long as those flows meet the capacity, we would likely, I would say, probably want to tie it into the discharge into the storm sewer if possible.
Right, and we haven't done that portion of the engineering on this site yet, but we certainly will. It'll be part of the approval process.
There's a question, were you approached by the village to present a plan, or did you approach the village? Are you speaking, I guess, if it was regarding this is part of the contract that the village has entered into with Mr. Korndorfer and his company. So part of the stipulations as part of the purchase and sale agreement were to hold a neighborhood meeting to present a plan. There's a question regarding the signatures that were given to the board. Yes, the board received signatures on a non-binding petition, and the board has acted on that as appropriate. Question is, what does the village anticipate from getting from this current plan in tax revenue? We would anticipate roughly, between 2.8, I'm sorry, roughly between $12,000 and $16,000. In total, all taxing jurisdictions could see between about $52,000 to $74,000, depending on what the final assessed values come in at. So remember, the village is a component of your property taxes. This also includes the school district, the technical college, and the county as well. Okay. There's a question from Joe Mauer. Joe, if you wanted to unmute yourself.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Trustee Bernberg is unmuted and keeps making noises. If she could mute herself, that would be appreciated. Okay, well, I would like to address some of those comments she made. First of all, back in the 70s, I wasn't alive. I was born in the 80s. I would have done something maybe, but I did not come here for the lower taxes. I came here knowing that Wind Point is, you're going to pay a premium. I mean, it's the home values are up and everything. So I did not come here for lower taxes. I'm sure a lot of other people can maybe agree with me there. And then maybe I'd also like to mention, she mentioned about the board. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, how many board members live south of 4 Mile Road, where this is all going to take place? I think one. So I'd like to just throw that out there. And then going back, the price point of these houses, 450 to 650. In Wind Meadows, the single family homes, I know they're older, but still, there's a $400,000 sort of a glass ceiling that, just doesn't really, there hasn't been broken since I've been around here. So, $650,000 on this part of town, maybe along the lake, even then they seem to take a long time to sell. And, as Mike Palazzolo mentioned earlier, we're that iron away from low income housing. I don't know if you're going to get that much money. Maybe you will, but let's just say you don't. Let's just say you end up sitting on those lots. Nobody's interested. You've already purchased them from the village. What is there to stop you from just selling those lots individually to whomever you want? That would be a big concern. And then would these, if you did, and is to say this is 4 or 5 years down the road when they're still vacant, hypothetically, what these conditions, how many homes, how much green space, would those still apply? Anyway, that's what I got. Thanks.
Well, there's a lot of pieces to that, but the plat would stand. The plat and the restrictions that we put on it would run with the land into perpetuity. In terms of home values, I can just tell you that we build in the 6-county area. I know the new home market very well. We are building homes right now in Auburn Hills, which is at 38 and Emerson. It's a former Belinsky project that we took over. And we have very small lots on, open space. They're nice, but they're much smaller than these lots. They don't have woods around them. And we are doing minimum 450, and we just did one that was going to be, there going to be about 700 all in. On is actually the first plan that I showed you, that elevation. It's our Danbury plan. So that's what new construction prices are, and that's what people pay. And I get that it is significantly different than existing homes, and it's true of every county we build in. So I think these are going to be beautiful lots. I think the houses are going to be very secluded back in the woods. It's not for everybody. Not everybody likes being in the woods. But it's a very small amount of lots, and we're designing them to be very secluded and very beautiful, and I think they'll sell very quickly.
Okay, so my question was, what if they don't? What if they just sat and you couldn't sell them because they're too expensive, or what you're proposing? What would stop you from selling them to somebody from Chicago or anywhere? I mean, anybody else, hypothetically.
I don't know.
Whatever,
It's a
putting in.
hypothetical.
Okay, so
I've done this. I've been in this business for 40 years, and I'm confident that that's not going to happen, or I wouldn't be doing this deal.
that's all I have.
Good.
There was a question regarding if you're interested in buying the other property in the woods that I understand is for sale. I believe what that is referencing is the lot to the south of this property.
Costerman's property.
Costerman's property,
Yep.
correct, yes.
The problem with this, and I was kind of looking at that when last time I met with Kate, is, Al's built a nice house back in there, and he placed it beautifully in the middle of the property, but it basically, between that and the wetlands, it really kind of messes up the whole property. I mean, back to the condominiums that we built, years ago, I'd always looked at this property hoping someday we could go in there and build more of those. But when you look at the natural features and the location of his house, it just doesn't lay out. It just doesn't work. So that's the problem. And it's not a tear down house. It's a very nice house. It's just the way he's positioned it, and the location of his driveway and everything, which that could change, but it just doesn't work.
Okay, there is Mike Rohrer. Your wife Beth would like to make a comment.
Just one second.
Okay, I've got a comment. My name is Beth, and those of us that live here are the ones that will be affected by this construction. I just want to throw my thoughts out there that I am opposed to the construction, and particularly the indefinite timeline on the construction. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Beth. I'm sorry, Emily Mueller had the question, who approached whom? Originally when the RFP was sent out, Mr. Korndorfer had approached the village saying that he was interested in the property. After some changes had been made regarding the withdrawal of the RFP, continuation of communication with Mr. Korndorfer occurred, and Mr. Korndorfer provided the village with a offer on the property. That about
That's
it?
correct, yep.
Okay. There's a question about water drainage and water ponds near Prairie. Can you explain what you mean?
Oh, so my understanding of, and I've only seen the conceptual stormwater layout, but the stormwater piping that runs down Deepwood Drive goes over and dumps out into the ponds, the big large ponds that are east of the Manor Homes and north of Prairie School. That's where all the stormwater system goes. So we just be following that stormwater plan.
There was a question regarding the amount of taxes. Yes, that's correct. Depending again upon what the final valuation is of the property, it would be around 12 to 15,000, which represents about 1% of the village's budget currently. So it would be about 1% increase to the village's budget overall. We did that. The current zoning does allow for single family as R4. So single family can be built there. There's a question regarding rezoning. What will the architecture look like? The images were shown, do not look compatible with what's existing in Wind Meadows.
Well, I mean, we're not trying to tie into the architectural style of the condominiums. We're doing single-family custom homes. There's a lot in the single-family homes in the other parts of Wind Meadows. There's quite a bit of variation in the homes, but they were built quite some time ago. So it's just what we're proposing are current new construction styles that, again, we build. We have 21 plans that we build over a 6-county area with multiple elevations and a certain amount of customization. So there's just consistent with new home construction throughout the region.
And also to the village maintains an architecture review board that'll have to review the designs of any proposed new home construction too. What will the lots cost? The guess is between 150 and 175,000 plus the house.
Lot only?
Yes.
Oh, no, probably more like 90 to 140.
Mr. Rothschild, you have a question?
Can figure this out. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so mine, I think you picked an excellent developer. I think this is a great plan. If there really was a consensus that development was necessary and appropriate. My concern, again, is still that there are a lot of people in the neighborhood who have raised concerns. And if we're doing this for $12,000 of additional revenue to the village, I just don't know why the board has chosen to, pursue this. And again, Wolf, my apologies. That's not your problem. I think it's more a problem for the citizens of the village, and as to whether they feel that this is an appropriate way we should be governed. It's sort of like, we've been told this is going to be done regardless. So that's my bigger concern. I think it's a great plan. I was wondering if you could do 1 or 2 houses on the same lot. We could maybe still get the same amount of revenue if the houses were expensive enough.
I mean, I'm just working with the current zoning that's there, so I understand. I haven't been privy to all those board meetings. I've heard of some of it, but that's really a board issue, not mine.
I hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. Construction go on. I think we've delved into that a little bit, but just one more time, if we could, what the anticipated timeline is for everybody.
Well, the truth is we just don't know. It's going to be market driven. We build a house typically in 6 months, start to finish. We get it framed up and dried in and move to the interior pretty quickly, about 2 months to get the exterior work done or less. And then it's interior work and, drywall interior finish. So it would be great for us if everybody wanted to buy and build at the same time, but I can't dictate the market. Right now, the market's very good, and hopefully it's going to remain that way as long as the economy, gets back on its feet and interest rates stay low.
There's a question regarding how long will Deepwood Drive be torn up and what will that involve? I'm assuming you mean the roadway itself be torn up. That in all likelihood would, the goal of Mr. Korndorfer's utility plan as it sits right now is to not make very many road cuts into the road itself. So in all likelihood, a connection to the existing mains along Deepwood Drive would be maybe a 1 or 2 day project, give or take, depending on what's found. So it's not the plan does not currently call for a complete reconstruction of Deepwood Drive or repaving or anything like that. Yep. So for sewer and utilities, the minimizing the connection points. So to give you an example, the Prairie School this summer made a connection for their new addition into Lake Meadow Drive. Actually, they made a connection to Lake Meadow Drive for their sanitary sewer and a connection onto Lighthouse Drive for their water. Both of those, that portion of the project only took about a day's worth of work.
Yep.
Kelly Kraus, you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Kelly Cruz. I just have two questions. Number one, it seems like anytime we mention Wind Meadows, it seems you are a little bit distant as far as your connection with them, even though Wind Meadows is really a huge part of this development and the community that is shared. Can you talk a little bit why you haven't really had any longer conversations than what you mentioned previously, saying that it's just been like, well, we haven't had this discussion yet, and why that's not important to you? Because I do think that the Wind Meadows community should be probably one of the biggest concerns that you have, given that we are really a community, and this is a big change. And then additionally, my second question is, and I do not know this, but do you have any past lawsuits at all with Korndorfer that we should be aware of?
Village? Or,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, okay. But what is the question about lawsuits?
If you have any pending lawsuits or.
Us as a company?
Well, no, the question was not any pending, but can you talk about any past that you've had, just to give us a broader scope of your, obviously, we know you're very well known in this community, but I don't know about if there are any or not, but I just was curious if there are past lawsuits.
No, there are none now. There are no past lawsuits. The only lawsuits I've been are over copyright infringement, and typically I've been the guy filing the suit. So, as far as Wind Meadows, I didn't intend to be vague. I just have not spoken to them, and I can't speak as to whether or not they'd be interested in participating. I haven't, I just have been working on this concept plan. I haven't had time to speak to them. I do plan to reach out to them, but I was directed primarily to talk to the Deepwood Preservation Group, and that's who I've been focusing that on. I guess I assume that they represent Wind Meadows, but maybe that's not accurate.
Kathleen, you have a question?
Hello. Can you?
Hi, we can hear you.
Who's supposed to be talking? Is it Kathy Gildenzoff?
Yep, no, it's you, Kathleen. It's you. Yep.
Okay. So I live right across from one of the future driveways. In fact, right now with the leaves off the trees, I can actually see some condo roofs through the woods. So I'm not really in favor of this whole situation. I particularly don't like the idea of all the driveways there. That to me I didn't move here because it was a city. I moved here because it was in the woods. Okay. My question is, when you start this whole procedure to do the land, make the land ready for your the homes, what are you going to do? Are you going to raise everything and then just put the lots in? And if these are custom homes and they're gonna basically order them and then you're gonna make the house, you won't be making a whole development at what time. What is it gonna look like? Are all these places inside of that woods gonna be just flat? Are they gonna be dug up? Is it gonna be hideous? And also, I would like to say that this meeting is productive, and I would like to see another meeting prior to, when more things have been settled and when you've actually picked out what sort of, things that you're going to be doing in there. So those are my questions.
Well, there were a lot of parts of that question. I'll try to recall them. You can't hear me? No. How about now? Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay.
Now I can hear you.
Up. Thank you. So the only work that we would do to prepare the site would be bringing the sewer water across the road, assuming that plan gets approved. bring that into those lots. All the other work in the lot, the final tree clearing and everything is going to be done as each house is built, because, you know, if it's a two-story, that's a pretty small footprint. We're going to be able to preserve more trees. We're going to have less area. If it's a bigger ranch, it's going to fill in more of that build pad that we showed on that plat. So there's not a lot of upfront work other than getting the sewer water accessible to the other side of the street. And hopefully we can do that with 2 crossings, and it'll take very little time and have very little disturbance. If we can, I'm not sure where the mains are. If we can bore under the road instead of open cut the road, that's better for everybody. It's less disruptive, probably not less costly to us, but certainly less disruptive. So that'll be our hope that we can do that. But again, I've not done completed engineering studies. We did preliminary studies to figure out where all the utilities are generally, but we haven't dove into all that because we've got to settle on a plat before we can do the engineering, meaning the detailed sewer, water, drainage, all that stuff.
James
Okay,
Aceto?
thank you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Kath.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up, and what does Wolf think about another meeting?
I believe that you helped me with your village process. Doesn't that include?
The village, yeah, the village, there would be another meeting. So the plat has to be approved by the village. The sanitary plan has to be approved by the village. So there will be additional meetings when these items are ready to be put forth for approval.
And will they be public meetings that we can comment in?
They are always public meetings, yes. They are always public meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see here. James Aceto has a question. James, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Well, first off, it seems to me like there's still a lot of unknowns. I realize this is a work in progress. The next steps are, what are the various gates that are coming up with this?
So I can answer some of those questions. So what the finalization of the purchase and sale agreement still needs to happen between Mr. Korndorfer and the village. He's got some milestones to meet with regards to that. The plat map for his subdivision will need to go through Plan Commission review and village board approval prior to it being recorded at the county level, which would essentially divide the lots into different separate lots, basically. And that would also be the same time as the restrictions and covenants would be recorded as well too. So basically, all the land division components are all wrapped up into one approval process, with the Plan Commission reviewing and the village board approving that. Then it'll be the utility plans will need to be reviewed and approved as well. That'll likely go before the Public Works Committee and then to the village board for final approval on those. And then any architectural designs for proposed homes will go to the Architectural Review Board for review and approval before building permits are issued for them.
Oh, okay, and
Does
then
that answer the question?
Well, it's just that here, well, we don't know what we're going to do about the sewer, right? And it sounds like there's a number of steps that have to take place before there's really approval or sale. Is that right?
There are still a few steps that have to be taken. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and citizens will understand what the plan is and what these milestones are and when?
Yes, they will. The notifications will be published just like we publish normal notifications.
I have this concern with the water level. I know it has to pay for my water damage, but I would like to know what the sewer is and the plan for that. So that's one of my biggest concerns. That's all I have.
Yeah, just as a reminder, so part of his Mr. Korndorfer's approval process for his stormwater management plan would require him to not discharge anything additional to anybody else's property. It has to be essentially managed on site or transferred to a storm sewer that will take it to a normal drainage location. So, and that has to be reviewed and approved by the village engineer as well, too, in addition to the village boards, excuse me.
I didn't want to go to my properties because I'm not convinced where it's going to go yet.
Okay, there's a question regarding any additional development areas that are being considered in Wind Point. What is the anticipated population you're expecting in the village by 2030? We do only have one additional area of development that's being contemplated, which is the school property. That's the only other really developable lot in the village. The village is entirely built out, so there's really, these are the two lots basically that are available to be built on. And then the anticipated population we're expecting by 2030, we're anticipating to probably see a bit of a decrease in population, but obviously new housing will help that situation as well too. So the most recent projections were not really factoring in Foxconn and some other development too. So after building homes on Parkfield West, I heard that Korndorfer said they would never build in Wind Meadows again. What were the problems back then?
Familiar with that comment. I don't know why I would have said that. It was a successful project. And there's groundwater we've built throughout Wind Point over Ruby Avenue. We built homes many years ago, and brother lived in one of them for many years. So, we're all aware of the soils and
Well, could you they couldn't hear you on that one. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
Oh, the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know where that comment came from. I don't believe it came from me. If it did, I don't recall. But I don't know why we would have said that. The Parkfield project was successful, and the feedback we have is that people are happy with their condominium homes there. So we are aware. We've built over on Ruby Avenue. And my brother lives in one of the homes we built over there for, he just sold it probably 20 years. And, we know about the groundwater, we know about the sump pumps, and you have to have proper design to work around it and mitigate the issues. And as Casey said, any stormwater plan and any new development these days requires that you don't negatively impact the property around you. So we're going to be subject to that requirement.
There's a question regarding providing services to the development, such as trash, recycling, EMS. So part of the additional tax base will help pay for that, those services. EMS will likely be, it's usually a fixed cost. So, a 7 home development will have relatively minor impacts on property, the village's budget in terms of services. Kate, I don't have those figures for you, I'm sorry, at this moment. I can get those to you. Are there any other questions? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Casey. So I'm looking at the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. I'm so sorry, Casey. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I'm just looking at the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, which addresses the projected population through 2040. It's the Village of Wind Point past and projected population through 2040. And in 2020, it estimates that the Wind Point population will be about 1,710. Looking forward over the next 20 years, it declines by 6%. And so, not too much is happening with Foxconn. So where are these, where do you anticipate that people will be coming from? I just am kind of, if you could explain the need for additional housing even after what Ray Leffler is going to be putting in at the Wind Point School property.
Sure. Well, regarding the school property, those are two different types of projects. The school project is condos. These are single family homes. And again, we feel that this is having diversity in housing stock, particularly new housing, will be beneficial to the village. There was a question.
Who is we?
The village board. There was a question regarding planned timeline again for the first basement.
Oh, I anticipate this spring.
Okay. Kelly had a question.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Kelly Cruz. I live in, I obviously spoke earlier. My real big question is that I just feel like there is a huge disconnect in the fact that you are coming into the neighborhood and building these things, yet you seem to have not even interacted much with the residents that had over 400 signatures against this, or even interacted with Wynn Meadows. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I know I asked you earlier and I felt like the answer was a little bit like, well, I haven't got to that point yet. However, this is a really big thing. If you have 400 plus signatures of people saying, we want to preserve Deepwood Drive, and your disinterest in that is a little bit concerning to me as far as your interaction with the community. This is a small community. We pay a lot of money to live here. And I just want to hear a little bit more from you regarding how you, I'm feeling like this is such a business transaction when you have, 60 plus people on this call right now, that it's going to affect their lives and their neighborhood. And can you give me a little bit more about how you feel like you're going to really be there for the community that you're building around?
I presume your question's directed at me?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so the background is the village board has decided that this is a residential property that they would like developed. That's not my decision. The village board has zoned it for medium density residential, and they've put the property out there to developers to develop. So that's not my decision. I have met with Kate a couple times, who I believe, I'm told, represents this group, to get their input. And their input is anywhere from, we would like to see nothing. The village board has decided that that's not what's going to happen in this property, that it is going to be developed. So within that parameter, I've tried to understand what the concerns are, and I've come up with a plan that started with 10. Now it's down to 20 or 30% in density from there. Remember, the current zoning allows 35 units on this property. I don't think anybody thinks that's appropriate or even possibly feasible, but it is not my decision to develop the property. So my thinking is, if it's going to be developed and give the village what they want, which is tax base, how can we do the nicest development possible and preserve the look and feel of Deepwood's Drive the best possible? And that's what I've worked with this group to do. I think we have a great plan. I understand construction is disruptive. It was when it was on Parkwood Drive. But at the end of the day, I firmly believe that the plan that is put forth, whether it's 7 or 8 lots, is going to result in a beautiful homes nestled back in the woods. I think I know we will preserve the look and feel and the canopy of Deepwood Drive. So I'm trying to bring forth the nicest, best quality development that I can that's finding a compromise between all the people.
I can address, there was a question regarding the signatures, the 400 signatures that were presented to the village board. The village board did act on those, directed a committee to review the possibility of options. The committee came up with the idea of withdrawing a request for proposal for multifamily, understanding that that was a concern amongst residents, and felt that a compromise for single-family homes was the appropriate way to go. So I believe that we found a developer who is willing to work with residents. We do understand. I will echo Wolf's comments and statements that yes, it is disruptive with construction, but this is the village board has decided to move forward with development on this particular parcel for the benefit of the whole village. Let's see. Just one comment from Ellen Peters. She just wanted to let you know that, Wolf, know that all residents, all the Wind Meadows residents are, that not all Wind Meadows residents are against this concept. Local people on this call do not represent everyone. I do wish the property would have been left as is for the deer, raccoons, birds, etc., who live there, but that didn't happen. So for now, I'm happy that Korndorfer is interested in building some beautiful houses on the site. We'll maintain the maximum green space.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions related to the development of this property or the plans presented this evening?
Casey, I would like to say just one thing or ask a question. If these lots don't sell within, say, 2 or 3 years, deal with the construction on 2 or 3 years until all these lots are sold?
On when people build on them, it's actually not legal from what I've been advised. So, I can't tell you the time frame. It's again gonna vary on when people buy them and when people want to build. That's a personal decision.
Right, but
we would not be building spec homes on here.
Right, but then us as neighbors here have to deal with that for that time frame.
I can't control that. I don't want to make promises I can't keep, so.
Yeah, again, this goes back to, if there are any kind of disruptions related to construction, that, we'll work with the builder to ensure that, if there are traffic concerns, if those sorts of issues come up as construction occurs, we'll deal with that. Keep in mind, the building footprint is 50 feet from the road, and will be within a wooded area. There is a little bit of a buffer between, where the building footprint will be, where homes will be built, and the roadway. So
I guess I'm mainly talking about with and digger and that kind of thing.
Well, maybe if you could just do a really quick, what's a typical, time frame for heavy equipment for a single family home construction?
So the first 2 weeks are excavation, pouring the foundation, and backfill. After that, we bring in the lumber and the framing carpenter. Depends on the size of the home, 2 to 4 weeks to get the home framed, to get the roof put on it. And that's the big stuff. Then we do the interior mechanicals. At some point, we have to come back and pour the basement garage floor after the mechanicals are done. That's about, 2.5 months in. And then from there on, it's all interior work, which is just, carpenters, vans, things like that.
There's a question if the sale is final. No, the sale is not yet final. The board will still need to act on that the final sale, per the agreement with Mr. Korndorfer. The referendum question, that is an item that has been already discussed with the village board. It was presented to the village board. The village board chose not to act on it, was not required to because the referendum was non-binding. The 30-foot conservation easement, who is going to be responsible for that? That is something that still has to be worked out, but there are different types of mechanisms to deal with that conservation easement. As to who's going to be responsible for that, and that will be part of the restrictions and covenants written into the plat or the subdivision plat for the property. What is the distance between the plot being developed and the condos on Woodfield Court?
I haven't measured that. Several hundred feet.
It'd be
you have Kosterman's property below that, and then or south of it, and then there's some buffer, I believe, in Wind Meadows behind the condominium. Plus we've got the buffer behind our lots, so it's several hundred feet.
Are there any other questions? If there's a question regarding the referendum, I believe that's better addressed by the village board and at a village board meeting and not this particular meeting. The short is that the petition that was filed was the village's board to act on if they so chose to, and they decided not to. I believe this is really a meeting to discuss this particular property development. This is a question from Mr. Habeck. Residents don't want this development. Virtually every one of the 440 homes that we went with a petition to oppose the development signed that petition. The residents believe the village board deliberately ignored the petition. They did not listen to us. City worker is very, very unpopular. Would you consider backing out of this development proposal so as to not further annoy and anger the residents? And then second question, could driveways off Deepwood be entirely avoided by constructing a service road on the south border of the property?
No, there's no room for a drive on the south part of the property. We went over that earlier. There's wetlands there. There's no space. If you did try to do it that way, you would just push the houses right up to the edge of the road, and then you would all see them. And you'd be looking at the back of their home, not the front of their home. The question is, would I consider backing out of it? Again, it's not my decision to have this property developed. That's the village's decision. I'm just trying to do the best development I can within it. If the village had, if the comp plan and the zoning called for it to be a park, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. My understanding is the village is going to develop the property. And if it's going to be developed, I'd like to be the guy to do it and do a beautiful quality development. So that's what brought me back to the table. When the first RFP came out, I didn't have a condominium plan. I didn't know that it would work, and I was only casually responded. Then when the property came back around, I don't know what it was, 6 or 12 months later, and the village let me know that they were planning to have it developed one way or another. That's when I engaged with them.
Okay, are there any other questions? If not, I'd like to thank everybody. We appreciate your time. Thank you for the comments and the concerns and questions. If you have any other concerns or questions then please let us know if you could. If you could just email those to me on my email. Recording of the meeting will hopefully be available in the next couple days. It'll be posted on Facebook and on the village's website. So there will be there will be links to the recording at that time.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.